Okay, we're going to talk about protective provisions. Get ready to dork out a little bit. These aren't super exciting. We've been talking about common stock versus preferred stock, and it's important to keep in mind, and the reason I left that up here is because preferred stock has preferences. They have a bunch of rights and things that common stock shareholders do not. And that's what we're talking about, is all these different kinds of preferences that preferred stock has. Right now we're talking about one in particular called protected provisions, or protective provisions. And what that means is, as a preferred stock shareholder, I want to do a bunch of things that protect my rights and protect my advantages over common stock shareholders. So before we get into exactly what kind of the examples of protective provisions, let's talk about investor favorable versus company favorable and why they exist. Essentially what protective provisions do is they say you got to get a whole bunch of the preferred stock shareholders together in order to do anything, to make any changes to these things. Because the preferred stock shareholders want to make sure that most of them agree that to make any changes, to make any major changes. So an investor favorable situation would be it takes 2/3 of the preferred stock shareholders to make a change. A company favorable situation would be that maybe it only takes half the preferred stock shareholders to make a change. So if it takes 2/3, keep that in mind as we talk through these things, that potentially you got to get 2/3 of the preferred stock shareholders to do any of these things. That means that they're somewhat important, or they have some financial impact or operational impact on the company or the preferred shareholders. So what are some examples of protective provisions? Whether or not the company issues a dividend. You're going to want 2/3 of the shareholders to agree before you issue a dividend. Increasing or decreasing the size of the board. Obviously, adding more board members could drastically change the governance structure of the company, so that's important. Changing rights, privileges, or preferences. So changing any of these preferences that you see here. Important, you got to make sure that you have a bunch of shareholders agree to do that. Increasing or decreasing the number of shares of preferred stock. So in that sense, you would protect yourself from dilution because you need a bunch of people to agree, a bunch of the shareholders to agree to just go create a bunch more shares. So you can't create a new class with rights that are senior to the current preferred stock shareholders. And what that means is that if you created a new class of stock that had a bunch better preferences, then the existing shareholders want to make sure that they potentially get those rights. So in order to do that, again, you need most of their preferred stock shareholders to agree. Whether or not you're going to purchase a company, whether there's going to be a merger, whether you're going to sell the company, or whether there's some change of control. Also something very important you'd want most of the preferred stock shareholders to agree on. And changing the certificate of incorporation or the bylaws. Those documents contain some pretty major rules about how the company is governed.